Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Blitz from the Office of Planning Research and Evaluation. We're delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Co-Regulation in Youth, What It Is and Why You Matter. We're so glad that you could join us. Before we get started, I'd like to share two logistical notes. American Sign Language interpretation is available for this event. You can select this option through the interpretation icon at the bottom of the Zoom window. You can also turn on the live captioning option. This week after the event, we look forward to sharing by email the presentation slides, a link to the event recording, and additional resources for your important work serving youth in your communities. I'll now turn things over to my colleague, Alita Meyer, to get us started. Alita?
Thanks so much, Karen. I'm so excited everybody's here. Wanted to just share this quick disclaimer and then tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about today and who some of us are. So my name is Alita Lynn Meyer. I'm the lead for prevention and resilience in the Office of Planning Research and Evaluation with Karen, where she's senior program analyst. And we've got four big chunks of today's session. So first, we're going to start out with co-regulation, what it is and why it is so important for youth and young adults. So I'll be sharing about that. And then Karen's going to share about user-friendly resources that have been developed for building co-regulation skills in your organization. And then we have colleagues from the YMCA of San Diego and from Youth and Family Services in South Dakota who are going to share their reflections and their guidance on how to implement co-regulation practices, how they've been doing it. And that's, it's exciting in so many ways to hear from them. And they're also, notably from an urban area and from a rural area, which I imagine represents you. And then at the end, just sharing some links for resources to support co-regulation at your organization. As Karen said, we're going to be sharing that out, but also throughout the presentation, there are links within the presentation for what we're talking about on different pages. So you might have wondered why something called the Office of Planning Research and Evaluation is doing a workshop like this. So we're responsible for assisting the Assistant Secretary for Children and Families to increase the effectiveness and efficiency of programs to improve economic and social well-being of children and families. And within that, we do a lot of research and evaluation, but we also do this thing called kind of planning. So what's the work out there that's already happening that we could then help our colleagues in ACF implement in really great ways with their families and children and communities. And so we've really been focusing on translating research and theory on co-regulation to ACF human services programs. And while we've been doing that, we've really focused on what's already, the science is so strong that we can develop actionable resources. And that's the focus today. But we also have been doing things where we've determined priorities for future research and exploration. And if you're interested in learning about that, there's a link down there to our learning agenda. And today, the resources that we are going to be talking about are grounded in this very excellent work that our colleagues have done. So the Self-Regulation and Toxic Stress series that we commissioned from Desiree Murray and Katie Rosenbaum. Also the self-regulation training approaches and resources to improve staff capacity for implementing healthy relationship education programs for youth. So that was funded by OFA. And awarded to Mathematica and Public Strategies. And it was led by Ali Fry, Scott Baumgardner, Mindy Herman-Stahl, and Diane Paulsell. And then we're also going to be drawing from the Building Co-Regulation Capacity to Support Positive Youth Development for Youth with Foster Care Experience. And that was in partnership with the Children's Bureau and awarded to Child Trends. And that team was led by Desiree Murray and included Hannah Rackers, Kristen Sepulveda, and Karen Mao. And there's just been countless staff and leadership across ACF who've been thought partners with us and team players over the years that I want to acknowledge. So co-regulation, what is it and why is it so important for youth and young adults? Well, in this first slide, I want you to think about a time when you've done one of these three things. And if you've done one of these three things, can you think about, share in the chat a little bit about what that situation was and what role you were in. So have you connected with a young person to help them feel heard, safe, and empowered to achieve their goals and to solve their problems? Have you ever helped a young person understand and accept their feelings, gain perspective, persist through challenges, and think before reacting in order to make good decisions and identify their hopes and dreams? And have you supported a young person in staying connected to families and communities and being accountable to others, finding resources, asking for help, and creating healthy boundaries, routines, and environments. Have you ever done any of those things? And if so, what kind of role were you? Were you a coach? Were you an uncle? Were you a teacher? Were you a therapist? Were you a sibling? You could just write that in the chat. And this support is called co-regulation. So that's when we do these three things together. And the slide before had an example of each of those three things. So building a warm, responsive relationship, coaching and self-regulation skills, and structuring the environment. And so here on the right, you can see how that looks specifically when you're thinking about youth who've had the experience of being in foster care, and how the coaching, really, you want to think about intentional and developmentally informed day-to-day interactions in terms of relationships, having a caring, consistent, responsive relationship. And then in terms of structuring the environment, because they are, you know, adolescents and young adults, really it's co-creating supportive environments. So before we really get into co-regulation, I want to take a few minutes to focus on self-regulation. And so those gears on the left are just a metaphor for kind of thoughts and feelings, and how when you manage your thoughts and feelings to enable goal-directed behavior, that's an example of self-regulation. And so it's a developmental process that's relevant across age groups, across contexts, and across populations. And so self-regulation is really an umbrella concept. And so you may have, so there's the umbrella of self-regulation, and it's really flexible to what's important to you, what's important in the situation, as well as adaptable to what's going on in the environment. And so it's not an automated response to anything. So it's having willpower, using executive functioning, effortful control, emotion regulation, and self-control and self-management. Grit might be another word that you've heard of. So that's what we mean. We're meaning this applied definition of self-regulation is that umbrella. And one of the things that in my role as lead for prevention and resilience, in addition to thinking about how can we translate some of this work to ACF programs, I also lead how we do research and evaluation with Indigenous communities. And so in doing both of those areas of work, I've reached out, and we've done some specific work focused on, is this idea of self-regulation relevant in tribal communities? And what the feedback that we got was that we really needed a more holistic umbrella. And I think that this holistic umbrella is just a great way to think about it. So it's still that umbrella concept that has flexibility and adaptability, but here really thinking about interconnectedness, community mindedness, honor, balance, vision, future orientation for self and community, and respect. So it's that more holistic thing that we really embrace. And if you want to learn more about that frame, we have a link for that. And so self-regulation is really foundational for individual well-being and for collective well-being. And so it promotes resilience in the face of in the accumulation of stressors and life events. I'm sure we all have been leaning into our self-regulation during the pandemic, for example. A great thing about self-regulation is that it's responsive to interventions. So it's a really powerful target for promotion, for prevention, and for therapeutic approaches. So it's something to do kind of everywhere. And it's important for all these different kinds of outcomes: relationships, employment, financial stability, school performance, sense of self, and then all kinds of health and well-being. And one way to think about self-regulation, another metaphor, is to think about it being strengthened and taught like literacy, like reading. So characteristics of both self-regulation and literacy are they consist of many sub-skills that require developmentally appropriate and targeted instruction over time. What is needed varies by context and by goals. Reading and self-regulation develop earlier in consistent and supportive environments, but it can be acquired later with intervention. We all know people that have learned to read later in life. Multiple intervention opportunities exist, and some people need more specialized instruction and support than others. And some of us need more support in different moments than in others. And you wouldn't say, well, I don't need to know how to read in the lunchroom, or I don't need to know how to read when I'm not in school. Reading is everywhere. And the same thing with self-regulation. You don't say you just use it in one place and not in another. It's everywhere. So it has a lot of similarities to literacy. So it can be strengthened through, so self-regulation can be strengthened through co-regulation across ages and contexts. So what self-regulation looks like changes from when you're 2 years old and 5 years old to 15 years old and 30 years old, and how we support that through these 3 components changes over time. And so one way to look at that is this graph where you think about self-regulation developing over a period of time. So across the bottom, you have infant, toddler, preschool, child, adolescents, and young adults. So that's kind of going across a lifespan. And that squiggly line across the middle, that's somebody's self-regulation developing over time. And so you just kind of say, oh, so maybe someday you never really reach a full bucket of self-regulation, and then these arrows that are coming down, that's the role of caregivers in co-regulation. So when we're young, in order for someone to self-regulate, you really have to have a lot of caregiver co-regulation. And then as people get older, the caregiver co-regulation doesn't have to be involved so much, but it's always important. And so, if you want to learn a little bit more about the critical role of co-regulation from birth to young adulthood, we have a neat resource there. And 2 key times to think about super opportunities are early childhood and adolescence. Those are really key points. And today we're focusing on adolescence. So I'm going to switch to this awesome video. And so I need to change to share my screen and do things the right way. Okay, and so we are here and open and share screen and share sound and share and click on the button. There we go.
You know that feeling when your alarm goes off on Friday morning at 5 a.m. Oh, to turn it off and go back to sleep. But today you have an important early meeting. So you take a deep breath, focus on the goal of completing that project you really care about, and you drag yourself out of bed. This is an example of what scientists call self-regulation. It's the act of managing our thoughts and feelings so we behave in ways that help us reach our goals. Self-regulation keeps you from saying something hurtful out loud to a coworker, like, "That's a really bad idea." Or, when you disagree with someone, self-regulation looks like choosing to communicate calmly and respectfully because it's more important to you to take good care of that relationship than it is to win an argument. We need self-regulation to stay healthy and to succeed in school or at work, in relationships, and in life as a whole. It's a skill worth focusing on. Some think that self-regulation is something you're born being good at or not. But this is a myth. Anyone can build self-regulation skills over time, like a muscle. And as we build those muscles, we get better at important things, like managing strong emotions in healthy ways, staying on a task even when it's hard, and considering the perspectives of others so that our relationships can thrive. Research shows that adolescence is a critical window of opportunity for building self-regulation muscles because just like in early childhood, the brain is growing and building connections based on youth's experiences. This growth really impacts those areas of the brain that support self-regulation. One thing to know is the term self-regulation is misleading because we don't develop it by ourselves. Its development has much more to do with the people in a person's life and what's going on around them. When a person has nurturing and accepting relationships in supportive environments, self-regulation skills can grow. Whereas harsh or inconsistent relationships and stressful or chaotic environments short-circuit the development of self-regulation. Knowing that, just think of how important your influence can be on an adolescent's life. You have a powerful opportunity to help youth build their self-regulation skills by providing support through something called co-regulation. Co-regulation means having intentional interactions with young people that foster the skills they need to build healthy and happy lives. To co-regulate means to be caring, responsive, and accepting. Create nurturing, safe spaces to practice and learn. Teach and coach skills that build self-regulation muscles, all while practicing your own self-regulation. Co-regulation happens when we intentionally synchronize these actions as we manage our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So often, adults take a step back from youth as they hit adolescence, when what youth really need during this time is the opposite. There are many ways to grow your skills as a co-regulator. We'll offer 3. First, practice improving your own self-regulation. It's good for you, and it's important to model when working with youth. Second, build warm relationships in nurturing environments. Imagine yourself as a young person in your program. Do you feel cared for, accepted, and known by the staff? Does the environment feel supportive to you as an individual? Third, coach self-regulation skills. Help youth reframe mistakes as opportunities to try something new and to build their self-regulation muscles. When youth practice their skills, they improve those skills and feel better about themselves. These things may be part of your practice already, but now you have a name, co-regulation, for the kind of support you want to provide. And there's always more to learn. As an adult working with adolescents, you matter. Don't underestimate the impact you can have on their lives. From how you greet each young person in the morning, to the coaching conversations you have, to how you react in front of youth when things don't go exactly the way you planned. Using a co-regulation approach can support a young person in ways that matter to them now and in their future. Fostering a co-regulation mindset is an investment worth making for all of us.
So that is my favorite public service announcement. And so we are going to get back into our slides, and I will, let's see, we're going to start from current slide. And so in the project where we developed that video, which is available to everybody on YouTube, they also developed a model of co-regulation and youth self-regulation where they put everything together in one image. And so what you see here is youth self-regulation in the middle. So that's managing thoughts and feelings to enable goal-directed behavior. That's there in the center. And then you see the three pieces of co-regulation to synchronize. So warm, supportive relationships, supportive spaces and experiences in terms of the environments, and skills coaching, so modeling, teaching, and practicing and reflecting on skills. And then you see that adult self-regulation around the outside, that's what really holds all of this together. And so this model, are we not seeing the slides?
Alita, we're seeing the preview as well.
You don't want to see that. Okay. Thank you. This is the cooler slide to see. So thank you so much, team, for your co-regulation support. So this is the model that they developed specifically for thinking about the role of co-regulation in classes where they're teaching healthy relationship skills. And if you want to learn more about that model, you can go to the page at the bottom that I will just repeat what I said, which is they get the youth self-regulation in the center there, and then the adult co-regulation around it with the three components. And then you've got the adult self-regulation pulling that together. So this is what we know from the research. This is what we know is out there. But let me tell you a little bit about what we learned when we took a deep dive and looked at all the existing interventions from birth to young adulthood that focused on co-regulation. And so we found 299 of those in, I think this was 2014, and coded them. So the team led by Desiree and Katie coded the team. It coded each of these interventions by whether they did skill instruction only. So that's the blue bar. Oh, across the bottom, let me orient you that way. There's birth to 2, preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school, and young adult. And so these were coded across those. And so the ones that focus solely on teaching skills in the classroom is kind of a didactic interactive model was blue. The co-regulation only is where the focus was solely on the adults. So either on the early childhood care provider or on parents or on teachers, but focused on the adult, their co-regulation. Those gray bars represent when focusing on both, so doing both skill instruction and co-regulation, so focusing both on direct instruction and focusing on the adults. And then the yellow bar there is neither, so that would be things that were designed to focus on self-regulation development, but they didn't do those types of activities, and there's not that many of those. But what is really notable is that co-regulation and a focus on both skill instruction and co-regulation are really evident there in birth to 2 and preschool, but you see how the line goes down. And then the shift goes straight to teaching and to filling people up with skills, sort of just like saying, regardless of what we know about self-regulation development, and that it happens in context with caring adults, we're just going to focus on filling people up with skills. And so I was sort of wondering, and I look forward to looking at the chats when other folks are presenting. Have you seen a similar gap in your world where there's a lot of focus on the adults and how they can support children's development early in early childhood, but as youth get older, the focus gets more and more on just kind of filling them up with skills and covering the content? So if you want to learn more about those gaps and some other gaps in the research, there's a link there. But we're not going to talk about research today as our focus. We're going to hone in on those actionable resources. So I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Karen now to talk about our resources.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Alita. And everyone, we're really sorry you couldn't see the video. Alita, I don't think you were aware. We could hear it, but we couldn't see it. So we encourage you to go online. You can look it up on YouTube. Take a look. We are very proud of that video. As Alita well knows, it took us about a year, a little bit over, to develop it. And we really think it's a great tool that you can use in your own organizations. I showed it to my 97-year-old father. He thought it was great. And he said, if I can understand it, anybody can understand it. So Alita provided you some great information about the importance of co-regulation, but in the video, it only gave you some ideas of how to build your co-regulation muscles. I'm going to introduce you to some resources that will help take you further and build co-regulation skills in yourself, in your program, in your own organization. Next slide, please. The self-regulation and toxic stress series that Alita acknowledged earlier is grounded in 4 interrelated reports that communicate the potential of a self-regulation framework for strengthening prevention programs in human services. I'll just briefly describe the reports. The link at the bottom of the slide will take you to all of them, and you'll also receive links to the resources next week. So the first report, Foundations for Understanding Self-Regulation from an Applied Developmental Perspective, provides a comprehensive framework for understanding self-regulation in context, using a theoretical model that reflects the influence of biology, caregiving, and the environment on the development of self-regulation. The second report, Review of Ecological, Biological, and Developmental Studies of Self-Regulation and Stress, provides a cross-disciplinary review of research on the relationship between stress and self-regulation. The third report, a comprehensive review of self-regulation interventions from birth through young adulthood, describes the strength of evidence for interventions to promote self-regulation for universal and targeted populations across development. And the fourth report, Implications for Program and Practice, considers implications of the findings from the first 3 reports for programs supported by the Administration for Children and Families. Next slide, please. While we encourage you, next slide, please. Yep. While we encourage you to read the reports, we know that your time is limited and it's just not feasible. Based on these reports, we developed resources to make the information more accessible. For example, we developed practice briefs that synthesize information regarding particular age groups, briefs focused on a specific topic, and snapshots that summarize key concepts for practitioners and educators across 6 age groups. The links in the slide will take you to those products. It's the background on self and co-regulation and the foundational work in the reports that led us to try to bring co-regulation into classrooms, programs, and other facilitated learning environments. Next slide, please. So One way we brought co-regulation into learning environments was through our partnership with the Office of Family Assistance at ACF. And it's the project called SARM that has the very long title that I am not going to repeat, that Alita talked about earlier. This study focused on co-developing co-regulation strategies with facilitators of OFA relationship education programs in order to improve staff capacity for working with their youth. Next slide, please. The first product is a discussion guide that you can use to develop ideas about using co-regulation strategies in your own program. These strategies from the SARM project were designed to be integrated into pre-existing programs regardless of the curriculum being used and without altering program content. It also provides ways to talk to staff about co-regulation, focusing on developing warm and non-judgmental relationships with youth, creating caring and nurturing environments, and modeling and coaching the development of self-regulation in youth. It's not just about what staff are teaching, but how they are teaching it. There are also some discussion guide questions at the end of the brief. For example, questions about relationships include, what are we doing to help participants feel known and welcome? How can we convey warmth? Questions about the environment include, can participants feel safe to be themselves in the environment? What can I change about the environment to make it feel more inclusive and promote learning and reflection? And questions about coaching youth include, do the participants have an opportunity to lead and then practice skills in real time? Are we discussing and reflecting on how these skills are going? There is a lot more information in this brief. We highly encourage you to take a look at it if you're interested in incorporating co-regulation into your program. Next slide, please. The second product from the SARM project is a toolkit that offers a set of strategies that were developed for youth ages 14 to 24. Each strategy focuses on enhancing an aspect of co-regulation, either relationships, the environment, or skills coaching. Each strategy is evidence-based or evidence-informed and rooted in theory. As you can see to the right, there are 6 strategies covered in the toolkit: welcoming, positive praise, breath to focus, group agreement, rest and return, and take note. For the sake of time, I'm just going to dive into 2 of them, welcoming and positive praise. Next slide, please. As you can see, each page starts with an explanation about the strategy, including which component of co-regulation it aligns with. The welcoming strategy provides a simple yet meaningful way to build authentic relationships with youth through warm, responsive engagement practices that help youth feel known. Next slide, please. Lower on the page, it breaks the strategy down further. It says, regular use of these approaches will promote positive relationships between participants and practitioners, enhance the climate, improve student motivation, and model the use of pro-social interpersonal skills. On the right, we see what the strategy involves. In step 1, youth complete a worksheet that helps them feel known by asking them how would they like to be greeted. If verbally, is it by their name or a nickname? Non-verbally, is it with a fist bump or a high five or some other way? Or perhaps they wanted to be greeted both ways. The worksheet also asks youth if there is something they would like to share with the facilitator about themselves, like if they have a pet, if they play an instrument, something about their family, or other interests. In step 2, the facilitator warmly greets the participant in each section according to the youth's preferences on their sheet. And in step 3, the facilitator then follows up and connects with the youth on their interests, asking them questions, finding out how they're doing, etc. Next slide, please. The focus of the positive praise strategy is to support staff in giving positive praise to program participants. It actually consists of 2 strategies. The first is verbal praise, which consists of 2 parts, and written praise, which includes the first 2 parts of verbal praise and adds 2 more. Let's take a look. Next slide, please. As we see here for written praise, the basis of this strategy is to try to give every participant a praise note, text, email, or card during the first half of the program or class. The first step, make it personal, focuses on speaking to the actions of an individual rather than a group. For example, you might say, Shondell, you answered that question so thoughtfully, rather than saying to the entire class, you're the best. The second step, make it specific, focuses on making praise that has a lasting effect by including details about a youth's behavior. For example, you might say, I heard you take a deep breath when the group got rowdy. That practice is good for you and good for your friends to see. The third step, praise effort and accomplishment, not natural ability, speaks to the evidence. There is evidence on this. The general praise about natural ability, you're so smart, you're such a great athlete, can backfire and reduce motivation to work hard, try new things, or practice skills. In contrast, praising effort provides a direct link between trying hard and achieving positive outcomes. For example, you might say, things may not have worked out like we hoped, but I could tell you really tried. To me, that matters more than doing it right the first time. Finally, the fourth step of next slide, please. The fourth step of tie the praise to a bigger purpose speaks to making, I didn't mean to switch the slide, Alita, speaks to making even more of an impact when people see how their behavior contributes to something larger than themselves, like the good of the community. For example, you might say, when I saw Jordan come back to our program, I was inspired and encouraged to connect to participants again, as long as we don't give up. Next slide, please. Since the SAREN project, our thinking and our work on co-regulation is broadened. This link will take you to a blog focused on co-regulation and strengths-based learning agenda, which a number of us across divisions of OPRE are working on. In this blog, we cite the work of Junli Lee from Harvard's Graduate School of Education. He talks about the idea of practice-based practice, which is a framework that includes applying research to practice, but also asks us to search for the wisdom in everyday practice. That is, what practitioners are doing every day in classrooms and programs that may represent an overlooked opportunity for innovation. You may have also heard this called practice-based evidence. It's not a new concept, but it reminds us that by honoring what many practitioners like you are already doing and learn from them, we are more likely to experience powerful collaborations that can reinforce and support practitioners in their relationships and interactions with young people. Next slide, please. One way OPRE has embraced Junli's approach is through the collaborative development with researchers and people with lived experience on the guides for how to incorporate co-regulation with older youth in foster care. These guides begin by engaging the reader, whether it's caring adults, child welfare professionals, foster families, and kinship caregivers, to think about what they are already doing that aligns with the co-regulation framework and sharing what it is and why it's important. This image is from a guide developed for caring adults, so coaches, teachers, aunts, uncles, mentors, family members, etc. You may recall that these were the same questions we started with for today's webinar. We think it's important to acknowledge how co-regulation is something people are already doing, and that by implementing the three co-regulation components together, our existing approaches can be strengthened. The guide is designed to think about what you are already doing, but doing more of it and doing it more intentionally. Often people are good at developing warm, supportive relationships, but perhaps not as good as about structuring the environment and providing teachable moments. Next slide, please. This is another page from the Caring Adults Guide. As you can see, it has examples for each co-regulation component, including questions and conversation starters to engage youth in supportive conversations in many different ways, depending on the situation and young person's needs. So Alita had suggested I share this example of when I was working in for the Commissioner of the Administration on Children, Youth, and Families, which is another agency at ACF that, among other things, administers the foster care program. So one thing the commissioner would say, we've been focused on identifying evidence-based interventions for youth in foster care, but he said, isn't there some kind of a evidence-based practice or kernel that we can teach caseworkers for when they, for example, they're in the car with a youth traveling to a visit with a non-custodial parent. Perhaps the youth is feeling anxious. Isn't there something we can do to help them with talking to youth about the visit, what their concerns are, and then on the drive home, debriefing on that visit. So Actually, what he was talking about was co-regulation. Most caseworkers are already doing something like that, but now we can identify it and teach them more skills about it. The guide provides some specific strategies that can be used in this kind of a situation. Next slide, please. So similar to the discussion in the car scenario I just described, here is a specific example from the Caring Adults Guide of the Co-Regulation Conversation. This is what a conversation might look like if you're texting with a youth. So it says here, within a strong relationship, caring adults can combine support with accountability to challenge youth toward personal gain. So you see kind of a not very happy looking youth on a couch texting his coach, "Can't make it to the game today. I don't feel so good." And the coach receives the text and thinks, "They seem nervous about this game. I wonder if that might be part of what's going on. How do I respect their health and feelings and also help them follow through on their commitment to the team?" So the coach texts, "Sorry to hear that. I understand if you need to sit out. I heard some of the other players say they were pretty nervous about today's game. I wonder if that could be part of what's going on with you." And the youth is looking at the text and there's crickets. So then the coach texts back, "Well, doing your best is all I can ask for on this team. And you know from our team agreement that unless it's a medical reason, you won't be able to start next game if you don't come. The team would love to have you cheer them on even if you don't play." And the youth texts back, "Well, I guess I could come and see how I feel." Coach says, "That's great. I'll be here to support you." So expressing concern and asking curious questions without judgment can help a young person manage difficult feelings and situations. Next slide, please. So you've heard about some tangible resources that are available to you that you can use to implement co-regulation within your organization and with you and with the youth you work with. What I'd like to do now is turn things over to our co-presenters from community organizations that are implementing co-regulation theory and strategies in their own work. First, we'll hear from Krista Esquivel and Christina, otherwise known as TK, Halmy Gillen from the YMCA of San Diego, followed by Mary Ann Slanina from Youth and Family Services in Rapid City, Iowa. Take it away, YMCA.
Thank you so much, Karen. Appreciate it. I'm from the Y here in San Diego. We can move to the next slide, Alita. My name is Krista Esquivel. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm here with one of my favorite colleagues, Christina TK Halmy Gillen. I'm a social worker. Christina is a therapist. That's what TK stands for, therapist Christina. And we work at a really unique YMCA here in San Diego, unique, different than otherwise across the nation, in that we have a really robust social services department. And in our department, we work with young people and families, but we mostly work with adolescents and young adults, those that are experiencing homelessness, those who have experienced child welfare. We do a lot of work with kinship families, and we have a very robust mental and behavioral health department with amazing resources and full continuum of supports from promotion and prevention to pretty intensive outpatient and residential options for young people. For Christina and I, next slide, Alita, sorry. For Christina and I, we've worked together for quite some time. And in our work with young people, we really felt that gap that Alita was talking about in the research, in that so many of the EDPs and so many of the practices that we engage in with young people, particularly adolescents and young adults, is all really skills-based. And we didn't do a ton of work on the adults, right? We sort of said, you know, if you're a clinician, if you're a social worker, if you're a case manager, you're probably coming to us with some sort of set of inherent skills. And to be honest, that just wasn't really always true. And so in collaboration with young people, we did a lot of work, you know, with our colleagues, with young people, and funded by the Children's Bureau. We were HMRF grantees. We were always really, really focused on helping young people get through persist through challenges, particularly those with adverse childhood experiences. And so much of that had to do with how we showed up as adults in their lives. And so after we got this demonstration project from the Children's Bureau, in about 2014, I believe, is when the first set of the series came out, OPRE series, and that was the self-regulation and toxic stress series. And that gave us like some language. It put all of this amazing language to all of these things that we had been feeling and experiencing and that young people were telling us. We also had this pretty major goal, which was like democratizing some of the clinical skills and therapeutic skills, kind of democratizing a lot of that and making sure that our case managers, our direct service staff had access to that, because what the young people told us was that those were the people they were really connected to. And so we really wanted to get some amazing skills in the hands of those folks who actually were probably more successful in their work than in a traditional clinical therapeutic environment. And we have a saying around here, which is you don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic. Really, really important to us. And so we created, actually, with the help of this entire series and all of these amazing resources, a full day training for our staff. It's called CAVE. The legends there at the bottom left of the screen. And it really incorporates the brain science piece of this. It incorporates the toxic stress piece. It incorporates self-regulation, co-regulation, and then sort of helps our teams understand how to act with that in mind. And really, we've been modifying our theory of change ever since. So our theory of change, our foundational sort of premise and ethos across the entire organization rests on self-regulation and co-regulation, no matter what work folks are doing. No matter if you're in a clinical role, or you're working in housing, or you're in a WIOA, Department of Labor funded program, whatever it is you're doing, this is really our foundational approach. And we make sure that our staff have access to all of these amazing resources and learning opportunities. Next slide.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina TK, here in San Diego with Krista. So what we've experienced over the last, almost 13 years or 14 years is really a parallel process of change. On one level, we've created our CAVE training that Krista just mentioned. We've integrated a regulatory stance into supervision relationships and supervision sessions. We've also gotten really great tips and tools that we've been able to implement from our direct staff, because they, some folks this really comes naturally to, and they come up with some really brilliant ideas that we always want to try and move forward. So for instance, our day camp staff, who is in more traditional YMCA sites, suggested a kind of jazzy infographic to help them remember to regulate, relate, and reason with young day camp kiddos who maybe, are having difficulty with a transition or want to, swim instead of play steal the bacon. So that's one small example. We also created, with some of our case management team, a very small roommate skill building, self-regulation, co-regulation skill building curriculum that they've been able to implement in our transitional housing program. And we're always reviewing OPRE's resources, as well as the broader field to look for more, newer research, newer practices, and figure out how we can apply those things in terms of, quick applications. And then secondly, on a more transformative level, which Krista was mentioning, is that co-regulation research has shaped our culture and became the basis for our theory of change, meaning that we know that stress is an inevitable part of life. And the way that our teams show up can buffer our clients from stress and allow them to take in our programs and services more effectively. And ultimately, how our team shows up supports our clients' self-regulation development. And so we view what we do as, being really important, the services and the programming, but we view how we do our work as probably more important. And there is an expectation among our teams that they will show up for folks in a regulated and regulatory type of way. So, and a great, side effect, I guess I'll call it, for ourselves and for our staff is really that our own self-awareness and our own self-regulation practices have improved. And I think we did not expect that to happen in the way that it has, but it has been a very pleasant surprise. And so ultimately, a lot of our staff are young. And so as we're supporting trajectories for our young people, we're also being able to support some trajectories of our young staff as well. Next slide, please.
So the theme sort of across all of this today is this idea of intentionality. And unfortunately, being intentional requires like a lot of work from an organizational perspective. It requires a lot of work from our program teams. It requires a lot of work from the folks that are working in and with our participants. And so the really cool thing about OPRE's resources and what you can end up doing with them is that it feels like there's something for everyone. And we've had all of these really great aha moments. And I know that our teams have also had these beautiful aha moments, but nobody's aha moment is the same. And so the idea that we need diverse resources and different types, right? Like a video, some people enjoy reading, some people really like those visuals. So really doing what you can with these resources and making sure that, you're kind of opening it up for a lot of people. We've had folks tell us that their aha moment was the holistic umbrella concept. It was like, oh my gosh, I totally get it now. Or the really beautiful co-regulation model and the visual that goes with that. Like, oh gosh, I'm the thing wrapped around this whole thing. That sort of really helped them. So, if self-regulation is so important to all of the things we do every single day, then we have to make sure that our teams are really rooted in this and the folks that are doing this work, because I know we say it really nicely, right? Youth are really highly attuned. Youth are highly attuned. Young people will suss out a vibe really quick. And they know if you're real or not. And so prioritizing connection with young people is probably one of the most important things that we can do. It will keep them coming back. It will keep them engaged, and it'll keep them really rooted in whatever intervention it is we're trying to sort of give them. Yeah, that's this slide. Next slide.
So, Kristen, I may speak of this all highly and make it sound like it's been a relatively easy, decade of work. But we, want to be real with everybody. We've experienced barriers. We continue to experience barriers, and the transformative level of work has really been a change management process. And so one of the things that has been the hardest to sort of work through is attitudes that people have towards young people, young adults, and their quote unquote behaviors, particularly folks who are coming with adverse lived experiences. So we have done a lot of intentional work to really reframe where behaviors come from and what, that they're a form of communication and to not take them personally. We have also done and continue to do a lot of work with our teams and ourselves and our leaders with our staff's own emotional capacities. The way that we are able to regulate and co-regulate has a lot to do with how much tolerance we have to experience our own emotions. And so we try and encourage conversation and build awareness amongst our teams so that they can figure out what their relationship is to their own emotions and how that impacts how they may be able to show up with others. And then, also just the way that we frame the reasons for co-regulatory work and relationship-based work, and really the benefits of that for everybody, and specifically the role that all of this plays in supporting youth mental health. There's a youth mental health crisis, and can we all show up in ways that helps promote mental wellness among young people as they're growing and developing. So we try to stick around other folks who have like-minded stances, and we just keep at this change process. Next slide. Should you want to get in touch with us, this is our contact information. Go ahead.
We love talking about this. We are super fans of OPRE's entire series. If OPRE had Swifties, that's what we would be. I would wear a friendship bracelet with, OPRE on it, whatever we need to do. We love talking about this. We love hearing from other folks who are doing practical work in this space because this is hard and we're after behavior change, both for our participants, but also probably the people that work with us. So this is kind of the way to get after it. And we're always just so happy to talk about it and learn more from others. And thank you for having us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Ann Slanina, and I am the program manager for the Youth and Family Services Stronger Youth Program. Youth and Family Services is a nonprofit organization located in Rapid City, South Dakota. If anyone knows anything about South Dakota, it's very rural, and we service the entire west half of South Dakota. So that's hundreds of square miles of service. We provide services in 29 counties throughout the western South Dakota area. And the majority of our programs focus on underprivileged youth, but we have many, many other resources within our community and in other communities. We serve individuals and families from age 0. So that might be early Head Start, home-based Head Start. We have a child development center. We have a middle school program. We have Girls Inc. We have advocacy services. And then we have a variety of other services that work with families. Next slide, please. So our area is 85% of our participants live in poverty and qualify for some kind of assistance. 75% are from single parent or foster homes. 25% of our parents did not complete high school. 32% are of a racial minority, primarily American Indian. And this number is well over 50% in Rapid City. We live in 70 to 80% live in poverty. Additionally, we are 90 miles from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. That has been deemed the poorest Native American reservation in the United States. And I mention this because most of the people that we serve at Youth and Family Services are living within the crisis of poverty. Next slide, please. So we are the Stronger Youth Program at Youth and Family Services, and we are a Healthy Marriage and Responsible Fatherhood recipient grantee. We are in our second cohort of funding. Our first cohort was in 2015. We got to 2020, received our second cohort of funding right during COVID, so that was interesting. And now we're in we will be starting year 5 of our funding. This program works with participants who are age 14 to 24. We utilize the Dibble Institute Relationship Smarts 5.0 curriculum. This is 12 sessions or hours, and we do 10 lessons that talk about all kinds of relationships. So this is not a dating relationship curriculum. This is not a sex ed curriculum. This is an all kinds of curriculum. Peers, friends, coworkers, family, all kinds. And we do 2 hours, or we are required to do 2 hours of built-in at the beginning of the programming for pre and post surveys. Next slide, please. So we are mostly school-based programming. So we are going into high schools and we teach our Healthy Relationship Smarts curriculum in life skills classes, in health classes, in PE classes, family and consumer science classes, and career and technical education. We sell this curriculum to our teachers as these are the job keeping skills. These are the skills that students need to keep jobs, getting along, resolving conflict, good communication, handling stress, those kinds of things. And I write that we are promoted as guests. We are guest speakers, we are guest lecturers, we are noted as experts in relationship education. And I say that because we are coming into established classes. We don't know these students, they don't know us, and we haven't developed that trust yet. Sometimes they haven't even developed the trust with that classroom teacher yet because it might be at the beginning of the school. So we really have to come in as our authentic selves. And I loved that the YMCA people talked about that. If you don't have that authenticity, teens are going to notice that. So that's really important. Next slide. What's unique about us is that we co-facilitate all of our classroom sessions. So there's always 2 facilitators in each classroom setting. We have worked hard to develop that co-facilitation model, and good facilitation requires that we're on the same page for goals of each lesson, that we communicate both verbally and non-verbally, and that we share responsibility. This takes a lot of trust and clear expectations for each co-facilitator to function. Next slide, please. So we have had the benefit, the good fortune to be able to work with experienced researchers to develop skills and strategies to enhance our programming. We have worked with the STREAMS program to develop and evaluate our best practices in education. We've worked with the SIMMER project, which is how to strengthen and implement marriage and relationship education programs. We have really worked on building trust with students, managing classroom and student energy, and debriefing skills. And one thing that we really focus on with the youth is that there are a lot of things. If you remember that graphic with the circle of the student in the middle, there's so many things that they cannot control in their lives. They can't control the classes, a lot of times the classes that they take, or, you know, what's happening in their environments, but they absolutely 100% can control their actions and their reactions. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to work with researchers who have reinforced that. Next slide, please. So 4 tips to support this model. We lay out expectations in advance, okay? So we travel a lot to get to the schools that we work with. I think we totaled up our fall miles last year, and we traveled almost 5,500 miles in 4 months. So it's really important that during those drive times, we talk about what our expectations are of each other, who's doing what, who's teaching what, and then we always debrief when we're coming home. We've adopted a cohesive team approach through training and ongoing check-ins. We've developed processes to support and encourage intentionality, and we engage youth as partners in shaping co-facilitation. So what does this have to do with co-regulation? Next slide, please. So facilitators can enhance our relational impact by practicing modeling self-regulation skills. So again, we are coming into classrooms already established. There's another in the there's another adult in the room, the classroom teacher. So we have to make sure that we're all on the same page of who's doing what, who's addressing behavioral issues, who's addressing anything that might come up, like a fire drill, or who's in charge of what. And in the framework of co-regulations, we model personal self-regulations, and as co-facilitators, we're regulating between each other. We foster warm, responsive relationships, we create supportive environments, and we model and coach self-regulation skills. Next slide. Thanks. So strategies that we use for co-regulation, we are welcoming with 2 facilitators in the room. That leaves 1 person at the door to be greeting students, to be welcoming them, to starting to get to know them at the beginning, getting to know them later. The other facilitator is getting the room ready for whatever activity or whatever lesson. We also do group agreements for every single class that we teach. Group agreements are done the first day of instruction, and this gives students a collective voice to talk about what they can expect from us and what we can expect from them. It's values recognized, and it promotes a safe environment to practice the skills. I want to go back to welcoming. I didn't say that we also do name tents for every class, and we ask the students to keep those name tents up in every class so we can learn their names. Positive praise is personal and specific. And again, with 2 facilitators in the room, that's easier to do than not. And then breath to focus. We use this at various times in the class. It depends on the energy of the class, obviously, that the energy is going to be different at an 8 o'clock class, at a class right before lunch, and a 2 o'clock class. So we use that breath work depending on how we want to affect that environment. We also work with a lot of classroom teachers who utilize that in their classrooms. So this is not a new concept to the students. Next page, please. So what are the potential benefits of co-regulation? Next slide. Co-regulation enables kids, I said, and this slide applies really, if you think generally, to everyone, to help people handle stress better, to resist immediate gratification. And we all know in a technological age, especially youth, are really honed in on that immediate gratification, to avoid hasty, ill-informed decisions, to solve problems, to adapt to challenges, and to take healthy risks. The DIBEL curriculum that I mentioned, Relationship Smarts, does an excellent job of incorporating all of these skills into their lessons. So to promote that self-regulation and how to regulate amongst others. And that's why I said we refer to it as those job-keeping skills. Some research suggests that having better self-regulation skills is linked to more positive outcomes, such as higher income and lower rates of substance use and violence. Next slide, please. So who doesn't love a cute baby? This is my grandson, Emmett, and Emmett is 5 now. And a lot of things are going on in Emmett's life because he's getting ready to transition from the same daycare preschool that he's been in his whole life and gone to kindergarten. So we're really working with him and his parents to regulate and co-regulate. Regulate. But I put this picture up primarily because we had Emmett this weekend, and Emmett was stung by a bee for the first time in his life, and he completely freaked out. He was scared, it hurt, it swelled, really lost that self-regulation, of course. And the adults and the grown-ups in the room really stayed regulated. They co-regulated with him. They helped him bring his breathing down. And you could just see the level of stress and fear and whatever else he was going through just leave his little body when we remain calm. And I think that's really important that, we are asked to self-regulate and co-regulate in so many aspects of our lives. And this is just such a lifelong skill and so important that we work with youth in this. Next slide. So here's my contact information. You can email me, definitely. I'd also really like you to go to that strongerfamily.org website. At the bottom of that website, and this is a little plug for a collaboration we have with Rapid City area schools, we work with a group, Teen Up, and Teen Up is a theatrical group that goes around and talks about tough issues with other teens. We have professionally produced, I think now 8 films about really specific topics that youth are going through. These are all student written, student led, student acted. And so it's pretty amazing what these youth do. So please check that out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann and TK and Krista. It's just so exciting to also hear the strength of youth voice that you both have at your centers. So what we're going to do now is have a chance for some conversation. And so I'm going to put this question here, and then I'm going to take the screen down so we can see each other. And so just wanted to hear your thoughts, folks from YMCA and folks from Youth and Family Services, YFS. So we've learned that we've learned from people that not only when they build their co-regulation with youth, but that also improves their own self-regulation and allowed them to do co-regulation with their colleagues. And so I was wondering if you've experienced that as well, like a peer co-regulation where you see colleagues helping each other out, maybe kind of like what happened with Emmett this weekend.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. These skills, and I think you've said it over and over, Mary Ann just said it as well, these co-regulation skills are for everyone all the time in every context, because this really is, self-regulation is the foundation of functioning. We definitely see it being really helpful for supervisors and those folks on their teams. So there's varying levels of where this really comes into play in being more intentional, right? Like someone comes with a crisis, I know I need to co-regulate first, and then we can move to sort of problem solving. But moving straight into problem solving never really works, as probably Mary Ann with Emmett, like, don't worry, Emmett, it's just a bee. We're just going to get the stinger out. Probably wouldn't work if we didn't help calm a little bit. And that's really
Right.
the goal. And it helps with conflict, interpersonal conflict. I mean, we have teams that have their own interpersonal conflict happening. So it's definitely applicable from a peer-to-peer perspective as well.
Thanks. But that's a lot of what happens in the car, right, Mary Ann?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those windshield times that we have are so important. And, before I worked at YFS, I was a the disability coordinator at a technical college and a lot of trade students. So, you know, we'd always tell those students that those regulation skills are what, again, keeping you in a job. You might be the best plumber, the best electrician, but if you can't get along in the workplace, you're not going to be there. So that self-regulation and getting along with others is so important. All of my staff has said at some time or another, they've benefited so much from learning the co-facilitation skills with Allie Fry. We got to work closely with her and then, you know, just practicing on their own.
Great. The resources that Karen shared, you know, that guide for thinking through how co-regulation might fit in your programs, and then those strategies of the welcoming and rest and return,
Right.
those are in those manuals. It also talks directly about how a supervisor can use those with staff. So the rest and return, take a deep breath, as well as peers use it with each other. So we didn't emphasize that so much when Karen was describing it, but I think it's a really important thing to bring out, is that those resources talk explicitly about how those specific skills can help with staff. So
I think quickly to add, one thing that I've observed with our teams is it gives everybody a language and the words, right, that just really reflect the increase in all of our self-awareness, but it gives people the language to be able to describe what they're doing. And, you know, hearing people's stories about how they co-regulated, you know, their best friend outside of work, like those stories are great because we can all laugh and chuckle a little bit together, but it's really a sign to me that this is really resonating and being practiced across all the domains in their life. It's
you guys
truly
would not
is.
believe the nice co-regulation messages I was getting from my peers after I totally messed up that video. So thank you, Derek. Yeah. So I guess that's another question, you know, that people have a lot on their plate. So organizations have so many things to do, so many requirements, pre-post things to do, data to collect. And so it's hard to imagine fitting more things in and training into busy schedules. So could you share some like final guidance and encouragement for how to begin, if you haven't seen these resources, if you haven't paid attention, and it looks like there's a million of them, how to begin integrating these in manageable bite-sized pieces? Thoughts on that?
So I'll start. So I'm fortunate enough that YFS has such a variety of ages because all that social emotional learning is just embedded in everything that they do from birth to whatever. So it's just kind of a natural framework to work within. And if we can encourage them to think of this as something that not only enhances their job and what the work that they're doing with the children or their families, that this can also impact them personally, and help them with whatever that they're doing in their personal lives.
Yeah, that personal level. I always say we're really comfortable with how this works with toddlers. It's the same principles with adolescents. So we've got just 1 minute left. So I'm going to hand it to you, Krista. No.
Honestly, if you do nothing but watch the video and share the video with your teams, I think that appeals to a wide range of folks and their learning styles, and see who gets excited about it. Maybe start a group. Back in the day, we had a group before all of these amazing resources. We had a group, it was called Neuro Nerds, because there was a group of us who were all really interested in neuro-informed social work. And so we had a little community of practice that was, you know, us that were excited about it, and actually eventually turned into these programs, these practices, and the theory of change. So the video will spark somebody. Definitely.
Right. Well, thank you. So that's a great segue to this website that has it there. It has all these different little aha options, but there's the video. You just type in co-regulation in human services and you should get this page. But like we said, we're going to send our, we'll be sending the video. I hope we can, of this webinar. We're going to be sending the slides. We're going to be sending a list with the links to all these different resources and are so grateful for everybody attending, and so much for our grantees. I was just, every time I got to talk with you, Krista, TK, and Marianne, I learned so much. And today I'm just like, woo, and my phone is blowing up with my colleagues from OPRE. So they are super fans of you all. And so thanks so much, everybody. And I think with that, we will say goodbye. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Special shout out to
Thank
the
you so
Assistant
much.
Secretary's office for supporting us and elevating this work throughout ACF and externally. We really appreciate it. And Dennis O'Leary, you're a rock star. We thank you for helping put this webinar together. So thanks, everybody.
Yes, positive praise for the Derek's team. Yes.
Take care, everyone.